Greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. I'm going to wait here another minute, see if anybody else is willing to join us here real quick at the beginning. As always, there's some stragglers that come in a little bit later, but that's on them to go back and rewatch the whole thing then. Okay. Tonight, we're going to talk about a little bit of control. Oops, wrong one. Come on. And we're talking about control. One of the biggest things that they have an issue with in the code here is the Paperwork Reduction Act, specifically intended to transfer things from paper to an electronic form, which is what we're talking about today. So we're going to, in effect, help them with their own Paperwork Reduction Act. Now, this is for administrative personnel, Office of Management and Budget, OMB directives, controlling paperwork burdens on the public. Now, if we comprehend this, this is in part 5. This is government administration. Now, the Social Security Administration is under that, and they have to have an OMB control number. And what they do is they convert that SSA 5 OMB control number to your Social Security number as a pooled special need. Purpose of controlling the paperwork burden on the public of this part is to implement. You guys know what's so important about that term implement? Because again, in their own code of regulations, it says, and this is the title of the code section here, contract terms and conditions required to implement statutes or executive orders hyphen commercial items. This little hyphen means that commercial items is attached to the rest of this statement. Contract terms and conditions required to implement statutes or executive orders when they are seeking commercial items. Every time they are seeking a commercial item is when they are using a commercial item. Okay. So the provisions telling us that it's provisional law and not the actual government. Okay. The government of the federal regulations is international contract or peace treaties and stuff. When we get to the provisional laws, that's the commercial laws of each nation. And they are the ones that provide for the exchange rate based upon the gross domestic product. Who's producing what for them? And this is done through a collection of information known as statistics, census, and you're offering and volunteering information into that system. Of the Paperwork Reduction Act of 1995, 44 U.S.C. Chapter 35, the Act concerning collections of information. Information means any statement or estimate of fact or opinion. So if I just question them, am I giving them information? Or if I'm changing the terms of the information they're looking for, are they getting the information they're looking for? It's like when the officer pulls me over on my bike and says, pull over. And I ask him why, and he says, well, because you're driving down the middle of the street. I said, oh, really? Do I need a driver's license on a bike? Well, you know what I mean. No, I don't. No, I really don't. So that fixes that. But then he still wants to have me pull over because he's actually looking for me for some other reason. So then when he gets out, he asks me for ID, and I say, well, I don't have identification. Well, what's your name? Pay attention. I don't have a name. And he looks at me and says, well, everybody has a name. No, persons have names, and real men have real callings. Now, I've been called Keith all my life. When my mom and dad got mad at me, they might call me Keith Orland. If they got really mad at me, they might call me Keith Orland Little, like the teacher did sometimes. But the little is only because that is the family heritage. Now, if that man wants to put down a name as Keith Orland Little, that would be his onus, because I never told him a name. I told him specifically, I don't have a name. If he doesn't comprehend that, that's on him. Because I told him I've been called Keith all my life. I might be called Keith Orland, and I hail from the family Little. If he doesn't know how to interpret that kind of language, aside from the commercial cognitive dissonance that has been propagandized in his little mind, then that is on him. Regardless of the form or format. So even if I speak something, I better know what I'm speaking, regardless of the form or format. So if I tell him I don't wish to contract, and I sign UCC 1-308 denoting that, and then just don't show up in the court, I am affirming that I don't want a contract. If I show up in the court, then I've asserted now I want a contract. And that's the presumption, folks. That is how it works. Whether in numerical, graphic, or narrative form. Now, what I want to point out here is that in postal terms, a key is to press numbered keys or other identifiers. That is the similar language, folks, of numerical, graphic, or narrative. Numerical, to press numbered keys or other identifiers. It's like language. All of this information is uniform throughout all the jurisdictions if you know what you're looking for and how to compare it, how to correlate it. And whether orally, corporal, the body oral, or maintained on paper, electronic, or other media. Information does not generally include items in the following categories. However, OMB may determine that any specific item constitutes information. Now, what I want to point out to you is that if that SS5 has the OMB number on it and they gave you a Social Security number, and then they're deriving forms, certain deceptive forms without the OMB number on it, known as traffic citations and stuff, where they're gathering that information. Constitutes information. Because you give them that Social Security number. That's what attaches to the OMB number on the SS5, saying everything attaches to that, and therefore all the information. When you get a driver's license, now your driver's license is attached to it. And when you give a driver's license, you got to have an address. And most people, when they turn 18, they go to the post office and fill in a change of address form because they got kicked out or something. Some point in time, you fill out this address form or something. And all of that information is under the Social Security number. Now, says generally include items in the following categories. However, OMB may determine that any specific item constitutes information. And those forms are affidavits, oaths, affirmations, certifications, receipts, changes of address, receipts. Everything you receive is a receipt. It is a commercial paper. It is a monetary instrument, and you received it. It is a receipt showing that something was transferred. All you've got to do is put the terms of the venture capital on it and revert the interest back to them so that they have venture capital to fund your private interests through their public domain or acknowledgments. That's an accession. That's what we've been talking about with the UPU, the Constitution and Universal Postal Union, the simple accession documents. Provide that they entail no burden other than that necessary to identify the respondent. If there is no respondent, if we remove everything from probate and there is no respondent, they can't identify. If they can't identify to begin with, they are looking for a respondent. That's why they ask you for your identification. The date, they're going to put that on there. They want your address and the nature of the instrument. It says right on it, traffic citation. They are citing a traffic code of whether it be a municipal code, a county code, or a state statute. They all enforce the state statutes, which are enforced further by the federal regulations 48 CFR 52.2 or 52.212-5, contract terms and conditions required to implement statutes or executive orders anytime they are seeking commercial items. Child support, fines, fees, penalties, taxes, alimony, filing fees. Anytime they are seeking commercial item, they are implementing a contract. By contrast, a certification would likely involve the collection of information. If an agency conducted or sponsored it as a substitute for a collection of information to collect evidence of or to monitor compliance with regulatory standards. UCC 2-206. Moms and dads, when you're at the hospital and they give you that registration form, it's an offer, and you accept in formation of contract. And notice that says in formation. Here, it's information, whereas that register collected information in formation of contract. Two different informations, people, by the grammar alone, and we need to pay attention to it. None of this will show this grammatical form of information. They will always use the commercial form, information at the lowest level, common usage. If an agency conducted or sponsored it as a substitute for collection of information. So when you signed up and filled out that SS5, the state sponsored you. That's all that happened. The state sponsored you. You applied for sponsorship so that you could go and collect information by going to public education school, going to college, getting a job, all of these things that they need their statistical information passed on to them through you. No other way can they get it. Entail a burden, general, postmaster general, international general, or director general of the International Bureau, attorney general, comptroller general. That's what we're talking about generally. Entail burden. In addition to that, necessary to identify the respondent. So it's not just a matter of identifying the respondent. That's their job. The burden is to make sure that all the information is accurate so that the one that sponsored it, the collection of information is. See, they sponsor the collection of information. And this puny little minded brain or puny brained officer out here with the little tiny mind that doesn't know what he's doing, and you don't know what you're doing, you're both contributing to the sponsorship of the idiocy of just giving them information to make their stats true. Statistics, statist, I see. Statist, I see. Or to monitor compliance with regulatory standards. Can I see your ID, please? Sure. Well, you're in violation. You gave them an ID. You gave them probable cause, custom, cuss, from root, cause. Let me see here. I just posted on that today. The root word cause, cues, cuss, as in accuse, comes from Latin word causa, which means motivate or motive or a cause, the reason behind something. The root word cause, cues, cuss is very simple and retains its original form and meaning. Because such a certification would generally entail, if you don't certify it, it doesn't hold an obligation or a burden. They can't move. Anyway, it goes on. It says facts, opinions, a request for facts or opinions, examinations designed to test the aptitude, abilities, or knowledge. Sounds like an experiment, a violation of the first of the 10 points of the Nuremberg Code, where the voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely essential. Facts or opinion in any matter. All things are contract. Facts or opinions obtained or solicited at or in connection with public hearings or meetings. Just because that public officer wants to meet with you on the side of the road in your private capacity does not meet facts or opinions obtained or solicited at or in connection with public hearings or meetings. He is then operating in his private capacity. He got out of his vessel. Facts or opinions obtained or solicited through non-standardized follow-up questions designed to clarify responses to approved collections of information. So when you tell them kindly you don't want to consent, they don't have the right to do a follow-up investigation to coerce your consent. Like items so designated by OMB. So we see it starts with the OMB and it ends with the OMB. OMB being the Office of Management and Budget. And it is issued under the authority of Section 3516 of the Act, which provides, again, provisional, that the director shall promulgate the rules, and the director means the director of OMB. So we have the OMB again, or his or her designee. D, signee. So it's done by signature, folks. It's done by signature. As long as you keep signing as the sponsored for those that are sponsoring the budget, you're going to keep giving them vital statistics for their statist intent. Shall promulgate rules, regulations, or procedures necessary to exercise the authority provided by this chapter. Again, they can only have this authority by your consent. Why? It has to be implemented by contract terms and conditions. It is required. It is designed to reduce, minimize, and control burdens and maximize the practical utility. Uh-oh. Is that a transmitting utility? Yes. And public benefit of the information created. See, you're creating the information. You are the creator. You are the creditor. Collected, disclosed, maintained, used, shared, and disseminated by or for the federal government. This is where the burden lays. It's for the federal government, and it's done and disseminated through the United States, the commercial state, the statistics. Practical utility means the actual, not merely the theoretical or potential usefulness of information to or for an agency, taking into account its accuracy, validity, adequacy and reliability, and the agency's ability to process the information it collects. So, like I said, when that officer wants a name, I don't give him a name. I don't have a name. I clarify it. Only persons have names. Real men have callings. I've been called Keith all my life. Mom and Dad used to call me Keith Orland if they got mad at me. And I hail from the family Little. Now I hear I was born around August 20th, 1966. Anybody that wishes to put down Keith Orland Little as the name and tell them that my birthday was August 20th, 1966 is a liar. I never told him any such thing, and I can prove it. Unlawful conversion of the grammar. So let's go back. Effect. Except as provided in paragraph B of this section, this part takes effect on October 1st, 1995 in the case of collection of information. Again, this is their only duty is collection. They are not to create the information. They are collecting it from the creator, for which there is in effect on September 30th, 1995, the day before, a control number issued by the Office of Management and Budget. Has to have that control number, folks. It is a must. If it doesn't, it's a certain deceptive form, and they're getting a control number from you, so they control you. Definitions. Well, we have burden means the total time, effort, or financial resources expended by persons to generate. They didn't create it. They generated it by pulling you over, and you create it by subduing or submitting yourself to it. Let them know where the true genesis is. In beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Maintain that. If you don't know that word, retain it. Learn it. Or disclose or provide information. Provide, provisional again, meaning it has to be commercial, because that's the only thing they can provide for. Information to or for a federal agency, the General Accounting Office, Federal Election Commission. So if you vote, oh goodness, the governments of the District of Columbia and the territories and possessions of the United States and their various subdivisions, or government-owned contractor-operated facilities, including laboratories and national defense research production activities. Again, I am not an experimentation, and I will no longer give statistic for anybody. It's going to be removed from that statistical environment. Collection of information. And this is the one I like. Conduct or sponsor. A federal agency is considered to conduct or sponsor a collection of information if the agency collects the information. Are you sponsoring this? Is the officer sponsoring this? I got one question for the court. Who's the sponsor? They're done. One question. Who is the sponsor? Done. By their own code. I don't need to talk about much else here. Sponsor in Black's law, a surety. One who makes a promise or gives security for another. That officer is giving security for the sponsor. He's the co-surety. He wants to hold you surety, step up and show how dumb he is. Show how incompetent he is. 19 U.S. Code 1622, foreign landing certificates. Let them know you have landed. And I think that's it. I will provide those links. And for that, I'm done. I'm opening the board for everybody else. I'll start posting those links in the chat so everybody can get those and start reviewing those. This is pertinent information, just like the 19 US or CFR codes and stuff I went over last night. This is pertinent for them to understand, and thus it's pertinent for us to understand. No, keep the friends close, but keep the enemy closer. Know thine enemy, know thyself. And with that, the board is open.
Okay, I'm gonna start off with some questions. As I understand that we as people, as we deal. So I was having a discussion with some people today. So nations create governments. So we're supposed to come in as a nation and deal with nations to make them enforce their governments to act accordingly, right?
Right.
So baby, could you shut the door? So my thing is so the OMB, okay, and then the Department of State, which one do we post to who do we post to notify first? Because the Department of State creates all these other departments. As do
Yeah,
they
yeah, we're going to be talking U.S. Department of State.
Right, the department. So now I looked at a codicil. A codicil comes from a will in which you can take your birth records and pull it out of the public, or you can transfer title or transfer rights.
Right.
If you understand if nobody understand what a codicil is, so they under presumption once your birth rights got deposited, and I was looking at probate. If you break up the word probate, the word pro deals with creditors. It's dealing with bankruptcy. It says that the creditor do not have enough to, or the doesn't have enough to pay off his creditors, or the person doesn't have enough to pay off his creditors by definition. And then a a probate is abbreviated for abate or abatement.
Yep.
So
Pro, when we look at pro, it means like pre or forward. Pre means prior, and pro means forward in future. So pro for ward. It's the bank for the ward. Probate.
Probate. So what they're saying to you is that your estate, you don't have enough, you are bankrupt.
Yep.
And they have to take care of you. So when you probate your estate, you are broke.
Now we're going to revert it back to them.
Right.
How we do that? Certificate of live birth exchanged in like kind for a landing certificate or similar language. I don't know that they use landing certificate and these terms. You guys got to realize these are just terms that they use for a period of time to get people used to them, and then they switch the term, and then 60 years later, oh, we don't use those anymore. No, they still use the same thing. It's a negotiable instrument, so just qualify the phrases.
Exactly. So my thing, I'm just trying to like I ain't gonna lie, I'm listening to everything. It's a lot to digest. And I'm trying to I know what I know, and I'm trying to take what you know, because it's very familiar in structure and in language. So I'm
Yes.
trying to take that from the laws of succession as it relates to rights of inheritance, dealing with your rights of choice, and break that into everything that you're doing on this side because it correlates.
Yes.
So,
Oh, and let me point something out to you guys here real quick before we get too far. Let me put screen share back up because this is one of the important parts I want everybody to realize. This is where the contracts come from. 5 CFR Appendix A to Part 1320. This is an appendix to what we just read, telling you the collection of information. It says agencies with delegated review and approval authority to collect that information. The Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System, folks. They are the sponsor, co-sponsor with the United States. They are co-sureties in the burden. Does that make sense? That's what that commercial item is at the end of that code. That's the match to this.
So I'm trying to correlate. Okay, now we gotta get with the UPU, right?
U.S. Department of State. You're going to be getting a whole lot of people. You're going to let it be known internationally. Everybody that steps up to the plate and wants to collect information, you're going to let them know. Here's the information.
Okay, so I know about the Department of State and the UPU, right?
Yeah, and that's your local postmaster, getting set up with him to establish that master trust account. That's removing everything from probate to the international forum where you can exchange that birth certificate for, like I said, a landing certificate.
Okay. And so from there, do we contact the what was that that's dealing with the money with the Swiss franc? What's
The conversion, you're going to be converting from a monetary system to a transitional credit. So no matter what they're using, because it used to be the French franc, and then it went to the Swiss franc. I believe at one time it might have even been the German franc. But what it is like I said earlier, the same with the terms, when they get tired of using this term, they change the term. It's still the same thing. It's still the same process. It's all transitional. What they're doing with their commercial process is setting people at a certain point in time when in fact we are transitional beings.
We're in the perpetual now.
Yes. Everything. See, people think we move through time. We don't. We move through space. We move from this space to the next space. The time is always going to be the same. We have to recognize that the delusion of time is that in beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was God. God's always in everything. So where's the time? It's not about the time. It's about the spatial environment and how we observe it. Observe, record, and report. We've been observing the wrong things for far too long. We've been indoctrinated to believe that our children are best educated by a public education system that's going to lock them into 4 square walls without seeing anything outside. Don't look out the window. Quit daydreaming. I had that all the time. I still daydream. I'm 54 years old. I'm still daydreaming.
So this is the Department of State, the UPU. What about the international realm? Are we dealing with the United Nations or?
Yes, that's the simple accession document to the United Nations agreements, the Treaty of Berne, the UCU, which is the Uniform Customs Codes, and the Constitution of the UPU. You're just going to accede to them. It's like I said, though, if you read that Constitution, you don't like something, you line item through it and overwrite it, initial it, and then when you're done, you can sign it and give them a copy. You keep the original, you give them a copy.
So do we order those treaties from the United Nations or do we order from the Library of Congress? Want to get out?
Print it right offline.
Print them right offline?
Yeah, just print the one right offline. The most current one right offline. Print it off. Read it up. They can't deny they didn't put it online if it comes from the UPU or the UN.
No. She don't want to get out of here.
That's public domain. It's got one of them. What are those numbers, Lori, for the publishing numbers? It's got a publishing number.
You're talking about the mids?
No,
Oh,
I'm talking about the it's a
Oh.
code that they use for all the different publishings.
oh, the publication code.
Talking about the IBSN number.
Yes, yeah, International Booksellers number. You guys know,
IBSN.
you know what book is, don't you? Etymologically, it's Bible. So I just issue everything as my Bible.
So what I was doing in the past, I was putting everything in a book on Amazon. Would that be appropriate?
Yeah, that's the international form recognized as a book. But like I said, I put everything out. I don't put book on it, but anybody wants to question me about it, I put it in book form, but it's my Bible.
So we still should, I mean, would there be a good format to still use? Because what I would do,
I'm developing my site as a publication site so I can publish my stuff and allow other people to post international publications.
wow. Okay, so the
That
book,
way we're taking advantage of that electronic form, and we can immediately print it off and keep it in our library. And this is the importance of the library, library, just like secretary. It's proponent to that. And with that, we've got a few seconds to go. You want me to open up? I will. I'll open it up again. Votes.